I thought we'd have a fun discussion of dystopia because I remembered that even Nate has written some dystopia.
I have not.
Yes, you have.
Haven't.
A whole chapter in Outlaws of Time 2 is dystopian Seattle.
It's one chapter.
I think whenever you talk about what's happening now in the 2020s, it is dystopian.
I know,
so,
this is true.
Check. You've
True.
written dystopia.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think you even wrote the destruction of an entire city.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. See, I win. I seldom win, but here I go.
Met a ghost of a king on the road when I first fell. Fire burning to my knees I fell. Met a ghost of a king on the road.
Here we are, another episode of Stories Are Soul Food, the premier podcast featuring
They are, and here we are.
us two, plus special guest today.
Us too. That's what we're known as.
With special guest today, Gwen Newell, who is an author of the upcoming book Forbidden Child. Gwen, welcome.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
What is Gwen short for?
It's just Gwen. It's actually short for anything that you
Gwyneth.
want to make it. Gwendolyn, Gwynethsphere, Gwenners, Gwenster, Gwensleydale.
I've only used Gwendolyn so far, but
Everybody has a different one. So Luke Jankovic, your brother-in-law, it's Gwenster.
Gwenster.
Yeah.
well, here's the question.
Okay.
How did you choose not to go with initials on your author name?
Gwenzapan.
I don't like that one very
No, I
much.
didn't think you would. That's why
I don't know what it
that's
means.
why I
but
came. It's like marzipan, but Gwen.
Well,
you just kind of went with the
it is
cheese.
exactly like
the
that.
cheese analogy. I went with Gwen because to me, initials looked masculine.
Oh, interesting.
Just G.K.
Oh, so
They
Chesterton,
mostly
C.S.
look.
Lewis,
She's
J.R.
wrong.
Tolkien,
They
Andy
don't,
Wilson.
but they do look dead.
They do. I don't know. It just wasn't the look that I wanted, and I really liked, especially in today's world where you can't tell who's a boy, who's a girl, who was a boy, who was a girl. I was just like, why don't I just like
Why not
being
take a stand?
up front. I wasn't like I was trying to.
You
I just thought that
still
was like a side
Didn't
side
have the nerve
benefit.
to put the full Gwenzapan on there. But
Well,
That
we're
probably
actually
would've sold more
we're
books.
actually Gwen's band. We're actually asking. It's a question from one of our listeners of are initials key to success? Because this guy has no middle name, so he was worried.
Well, if you ask J.K. Rowling, they are, because she didn't have a middle name, and the publisher's like, we have to have a middle name. She goes, K. That's it, period.
Oh,
There's
okay.
no middle
Nice.
name to
There you
J.K.
go.
Rowling.
and of course the reason why she was going with initials was why
I don't know,
to
actually.
mask her gender. So to
That
your
is-
first,
Oh, really?
Yep,
to
So
your
I
first
was
point,
actually on
she
to
wanted
something
boys to read it, and boys are uniquely prejudicial.
Marketing
So,
the marketing for the Harry Potter ones. They said that if women will read either, and
for sure.
the men tend to read.
Well, the thing is, she had a boy on her front cover, so she also had to have dead initials in order to get boys
Yeah.
to read it. I'm not gonna win because I have a girl on my cover.
Girl.
So
Also,
I might
well,
as
let
well
me
just
say,
lean into the girl.
it's also about a child. So
It's about a baby. So
there's a
it's-
child, there's a girl on the cover, and your name is Gwen.
Just
So-
to get this out, Forbidden Child, we are now streaming this video so anyone can watch it. Not streaming, that's the wrong word. Posting the video. You don't have to be on Canon Plus in order to see it.
Well, nice.
Gwen Newell's new book, Forbidden Child, with the baby on the front, and she's standing on a ship. We should get into that.
With the baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
We should get into that in a minute, but I thought we'd have a fun discussion of dystopia because I remembered that even Nate has written some dystopia.
I have not.
Yes, you have.
Haven't.
A whole chapter in Outlaws of Time 2 is dystopian Seattle.
It's one chapter.
I think whenever you talk about what's happening now in the 2020s, it is dystopian.
I know,
so,
this is true.
Check. You've
True.
written dystopia.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think you even wrote the destruction of an entire city.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. See, I win. I seldom win, but here I go.
But it wasn't a novel. It was just a chapter.
Okay, well, jumping into Gwen's book here, I wanted to run through some of the ingredients of dystopia because it actually also crossed my mind that it feels like we talk about dystopia quite a bit with America right now. Some of the quick hallmarks of dystopia, and maybe this is hallmarks of all fiction. So,
But dystopia,
We'll
at
see how
least.
unique it
We'll
is.
find out. Let's find out.
ready? Here they
Try
go.
the shoe on, Brian.
First step, establish the reality, the new reality. Second step, false utopia.
Mm-hmm.
Third step, the event. Fourth step, totalitarian, the totalitarian. You could also call it dictator, but and then fifth step, resistance, and sixth step, result. And that kind of is
No.
Not
So
dystopia.
I'm pleasantly nodding. I'm like,
Yeah.
sounds
welcome
like
to
my
the
book.
podcast, Gwen.
You two fighting.
Gwen
So-
made the mistake of agreeing.
I'm gonna start gesturing with my hand in front of the lens over here. I think about things like the road.
Yeah.
Like where's the tyrant? Where's the oppression?
Yeah.
You know, you can have dystopia without it being political or tyrannical.
But aren't all the classic ones? I'm talking The Giver, Maze Runner, Hunger Games.
Oh gosh,
City
you
of
just
Ember.
put Maze Runner in the list of classic ones.
Sorry, the ones that we think of, unfortunately.
Oh,
I too was gonna. I was just gonna let that slide, Brian. I was being nice.
she's been very pleasant.
Our podcast doesn't let things slide.
I would say
Let me
that
throw
Gwen,
Divergent
let's just
in there.
say first that Gwen came on the show today with all her New Year's resolutions intact.
Yeah.
I
She's
don't-
here
didn't
being
have
nice.
any.
She's work. Obviously, you're just not fighting. You're not being combative.
Well,
You're-
I am the guest.
Yeah, no,
You
sure,
know
you
I
should
can
be.
throw down
I
if
think
I have to.
the real classic stuff, like the real classic, is usually like true post-apocalyptic,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to present tyrannical. So
Okay.
I think a dystopia could absolutely be. Well, I mean, I'm going to argue for your side now. Like I guess that's the differentiation between post-apocalyptic and dystopia.
It's just that.
So if you have a tribal society that's, a bunch of cannibals in the woods post-apocalypse, is that a dystopian piece of dystopian fiction? Is it?
I mean, I saw Lord of the Flies thrown on a list of dystopian fiction, which I thought was kind of ridiculous, but it
Right.
does kind of fit the rule, I guess, of establishing a new reality.
Mm-hmm.
We're stuck on an island.
So I mean, like even the nature of the construct of the title and the genre is, the dysfunction of utopia. So we're taking utopia and then we're actually perverting it, subverting it with dystopia. So I think you have a point. I think you have a valid point. I'm not going to quite withdraw everything I just said because I think that if you described a post-apocalyptic piece of fiction as dystopian, nobody would really miss a beat. There's a guy and there's man and boy with a shopping cart on the road,
Right.
just
We all get the picture.
traveling through nuclear winter, with
Yeah.
cannibals and all sorts of stuff all over the place. So I understand why it makes sense to use the list that you just did, the descriptors,
Right.
but that requires the extra classification.
I guess when we're going with the road, there is his point that society, the typical point that society has become the totalitarian, or is Cormac doing a little bit of bait and switch that with the genre here? He's not really interested in telling about he doesn't want that overt of a story of dad versus the tyrant guy. He's going to have multiple different problems along the way.
Yeah, but I mean, think about I Am Legend and
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes. There are a bunch of classic, like catastrophic collapse, like post-collapse stories that are very dystopian in tone, and
Right.
society is dystopian. It's more like it never presents itself as utopian. It presents itself honestly as hell, and
Okay, gotcha.
is hell. So the question is whether dystopian fiction requires the presentation of itself as utopian. So
Or at least some of the people within the society believing it to be, correct?
that's
Like,
that's what
the
I'm
author
wondering.
can
Like,
be-
is that if we want to set that up as a rule for this genre? Because this meeting is authoritative.
I think we do have to have a group of people saying this is the way that we live. So I'm
Now.
thinking in The Road, even that the cannibals have that function.
But that's The Last of Us. That's
Yeah.
I
I guess every
people, but then it's little enclaves.
Yeah.
So it's enclaves inside of the apocalypse where there's super weird cultic cannibalism or whatever.
Right. Children of Men is another one, obviously, and Blade Runner or the Electric Sheep one, the original one.
Yeah.
I mean, even Never Let Me Go, I guess, if we're going on kind of weird apocalyptic stuff, has some elements of the dystopia.
But there's, The Matrix, everything else. There's so many, like the aliens definitely think that the whole system with the Matrix is fantastic. People inside of
Okay.
it,
Yeah.
people inside of it, hate it or don't hate it. But
Yeah.
this seems really to narrow what we mean by dystopian. And I think broadly understood in the culture, dystopian means much more.
Is most sci-fi dystopian then? I guess Is
a lot
that-
of it.
I guess
Yeah.
probably.
It's almost all prophetic against the tyranny of science, or like that moment when Icarus falls or the tower is struck with a curse. There's always this push towards the consequences of hubris and man trying to be God. But in this case, with Forbidden Child, we have one ship. The whole thing's taking place. The whole story is taking place on one ship, and it is actually kind of that post-apocalyptic. So it is post-apocalyptic dystopian, meaning by either definition, we make it because we're in a society, we're in a system that's extremely tyrannical and North Korean on a boat, and then we're in a broadly unexplored, catastrophic collapse. So
Gotcha.
So what do you, Gwen, author of Dystopian, think about this
narrow
distinction?
the question.
About this
haven't
distinction?
actually-
Would you call this a post-apocalyptic or do you think your work is dystopian?
It almost seems to me, and I could be wrong about this, but like it almost seems like all the dystopians require them to be post-apocalyptic in some way. There has to have been some sort of collapse, and we usually enter after it.
Okay, let me
it
ask
seems.
you this about our current dystopia in which we live.
Yeah.
Where was the apocalypse?
The moment. Oh, you'd probably have to go back to like the theological
There
liberalism
wasn't
of the
one.
19th century.
There was like
Like-
oozing rot, right?
Yeah, there's oozing
So there
rot.
doesn't have to be cataclysm, but there usually is because it's easier in plots.
Yes.
In terms of attention
yeah,
span.
in a timeline.
It was
easier
500
timeline.
years after the Great Malaise.
Right. For us, it'd just be, a ton of ennui. Just like a ton
Yes,
of, just
so
like,
much.
oh my word.
So much ennui to the gills.
So I guess timeline or a time machine, right, could be a good example of another one where you don't necessarily need a collapse. We've just gone way forward in the future and are going to play with it there. I'm thinking H.G. Wells.
Assuming that it's on the wrong road and everything down that road is bad,
Right, I guess so.
which it apparently looks like it's going to be.
Well, if you
Or
use
pick Silo, since that's big. We've been talking about
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
there. That's
Yeah, is Silo dystopian?
maybe our distinction here.
Because
I still
actually
think
don't
you
think
guys
it
need
is.
to boil it down to a nugget definition.
I don't think that one is dystopian.
Versus-
Wait, hold
a
on. You don't
10-minute
think it's
rambling.
dystopian?
No.
You just think you think there is that hard distinction between the two, post-apocalyptic. And
It's
dystopian.
post-apocalyptic. I don't think it's dystopian.
Because you don't think they're trying to make a lie that this is a great future.
I think
but
it's
it
a head
stinks.
fake. It's a head fake where you have a character who believes themselves to live in a dystopia, but they actually live in an arc. And there's lots of weird. There's definitely corruption in the judicial branch in the Silo story.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a ton of corruption there, and what she discovers is the truth, which is it's post-apocalyptic. It's like it's
Oh,
so
okay.
that they're
I started
all in
out
this-
thinking you were way off base, and now unfortunately I'm starting to think you might have.
but we don't have malice in the actual civilization
setup.
structure, right? There's no malice in the actual social structure, unlike Gwen's book where there's just malice.
Yeah.
It was easy to pour the malice in.
Yeah.
I only got halfway through Wool before getting tired of watching people die from the first POV, which it blew my mind the first time I read it. And then she killed another character the exact
Oh,
same way.
as you're
He,
reading-
sorry, not she.
As you're
Yeah,
reading
and so
along.
I was like, Nate, you're probably going to tell me I should finish the book, just like
Why?
you've told. I don't know, because you tell me to finish every other book I check across the room. I should
Gwen, you should finish that one. Just because
to have
I
finished
never
it.
have, and I'm
you want to wish that
I want
on
to hear
me.
more.
No, I was basically Brian told me to read it for world building inspiration. But I just was like, check, I got more
True
inspired on
confessions.
world building.
Whenever one's making a true confession, it should always be into the microphone. So
Definitely.
she's
Oh, no,
confessing-
I think I put this
she's
on Goodreads,
confessing
too. I
in
was
the
like-
microphone across from her editor that she did not do what her editor asked her to do. Which is like,
Brian,
what,
he would never
Gwen,
say, go read it. He would have
turns
said,
out
you could go read this.
You're a
That's how
real
Brian
author
would have put it.
after all. You ignore your editor.
Just
No, I
flex.
really did take, I think, all of Brian's advice. I just didn't read
No.
all of it.
Gwen, you don't have to say this. Don't let him force you into saying this.
I want
It's true,
to I do want to hear your pitch for the book. So, and I know we've talked before. I have taught you in an MFA program.
Yep.
Yeah, we should talk about that too.
So Gwen has done a lot of writing study over the years, way back to your early days.
Yep.
And most recently in an MFA program.
Correct.
Of which I was the director. And you've always been very rule based.
Strange.
Yeah, very
very
rule based. Which is
book.
why it was not at all. To quote the King James, I was astonished that she would write a book about fighting the rule based impulses. So it feels to me like this is an outworking of your own demons, and also. Well, there's a lot here for you to pitch. So we were joking about how there's a child on the front and there's, a girl and your name is Gwen. But I pitched the book, especially if you're talking to a 13-year-old boy in an elevator.
Okay, well that's kind of easy because the first
From
time I
floors
told
2
this
to
story.
6.
wait, in an elevator? Okay, I had my nephews when they were probably 8 and 10 at the time, so a little bit younger than 13, but they're 14 and 15 now. So the pitch that I told them that made their eyes light up is that there's this prison ship. And there's basically, wait, let me back up. A worldwide flood, everybody's on boats, and there's one American ship left, and it's a prison ship, but nobody on the ship realizes it's a prison ship because it's like being born and raised in a North Korean prison camp where you don't even know what normal life is like. Even in North Korea. What?
You think it's Disneyland, obviously.
Yeah, you just think it's normal. And there's basically you have your Hitler youth of the ship, the kids who were raised and indoctrinated from day one to narc on everybody, including their parents, especially their parents, worship the dear leader of the ship, do all these things. And within that, you have this girl who is like the best of the best, the one who is so committed to the rules, wants to make basically the godmother, the dear leader. She wants to make the favorite list. She wants to get to the top of the ship and prove, basically, picture JoJo wanting to meet Hitler. Just like he's just
Jojo Rabbit.
Just Jojo Rabbit really wanting to get there, but mine's not quite as funny as Jojo Rabbit, I should say. This character's
name is Gwen Zapan. No, what's the actual name of the character?
Piper. And I don't know, that name just seemed to stick. It wasn't like
it's a good name
I had
for this
no
character.
Rhymes with
reason
hyper.
for it. That could be the reason.
So she wants to be number one citizen on the boat.
She wants to be number one. So she's going to tattle on everybody. And she's really good at it. She's observant. She's small, so she can sneak everywhere. She's super committed. And she finds on this population-controlled boat, she finds a baby that is born outside the permitted window, which is every 20 years, 100 couples are permitted to have one child each. So she's like, if she's 13, the next baby's not due for at least 7. There's supposed to be 100 of them. All the parents are supposed to be approved, all this stuff going on. And she finds the baby. And she realizes for the first time, is this a line that I actually can't cross? Like, what is the best of the best Hitler Youth children going to do when they actually find not just somebody doing a bad job, sweeping the decks, or not saying the prayer to the godmother correctly, something that's kind of easy to be like, they wrote a letter and they shouldn't have written a letter at that time, little stuff like that. But now she finds an actual human being and she's never seen anyone smaller than herself.
Yes, the illegal organism.
She's been taught to call them illegal organisms unless they are basically baptized under the godmother's
goodwill. Unless they're carrying their permits.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't have their papers. So then she's just the way I leave the pitch is she has to decide what to do. Is she going to turn it in, or is what is she going to do on a cruise ship with 8,000 other people and there's nowhere to run?
Okay.
And so even boys will just be like,
so this is a really devoted cult member who's hitting that point of the lights turned on a little bit. Okay.
Yep.
And then, of course, story of rebellion and escape and sort of espionage.
How many spoilers are we allowed to talk about on
Everyone
this podcast?
Dies. That's the rule of thumb for all of our spoilers.
It's actually
Everybody
the rule
dies.
of thumb for dystopia. I just added that as point number 7.
It was definitely what you told me the first time I pitched you the book. I was like, halfway through the book, she gets off the ship and she has this on land run with the baby thing. And you're like, she stays on the ship the whole time because you need that pressure cooker. And as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, I know. I've read books like that or seen movies where as soon as they get out of the confined
a
space.
backpack out of banana leaves.
No, that'd be a totally different story. That's like, that's
a survival
shipwrecked.
story. Yeah.
That's very different. And as soon as you said it, you're like, she stays on the ship she gets off, the whole ship has to go down. And I was like, I love it so much. So that was just as soon as I knew
But we're
not
not saying that that's what happens.
No, I just
That
say that's
just could
because
happen.
as you know,
Read
Nate
the
told me
book.
to do it, but I may not have.
Well, you know that she didn't do what Brian said. And yeah.
So
that
you
was
still don't know how it ends, guys.
So Forbidden Child, I really wanted this to be called Baby on Board, but
I know you did.
nobody went with me on
Okay,
that.
okay. Just so you know, it was a nightmare trying
Hold on,
to
just
draw
hold the cover right
for
here.
Meg and Koviak, who
Baby
did the
on
art.
board.
She had a hard enough time as it is having the title Forbidden Child with an underage, teenage girl holding a baby. It sounds like Scarlet Letter Part 2. Like, just that's what this is about. So she had
Scarlet
to,
Z.
especially when it was called Baby on Board. She's like, I cannot have the girl stand
Baby
with
on
her
Board
hands
was a
anywhere
flight of
near her
fancy.
tummy. It was like she can't at all look worried, stressed, angry.
Hey, everybody!
Like,
She found the baby.
she finds the baby.
It's not her baby, except finders keepers.
She is actually, for being such a terrible little child, she's actually very sheltered in terms of even where babies come from.
Sure,
like
yeah.
she, because they don't want people to know
As
that.
is our entire podcast audience. Could you explain, please?
No.
So Forbidden Child is actually a fantastic title. I think it's a great title.
Thank
I
you.
really like the concept for the story.
Yeah,
and I
word-
think it will go. I think it's going to be a really fast read for people, which is I think
my
another
first-
big piece of what I think dystopian does
Yeah.
when it's working is that it's very speedy. It's not something you take
You don't
a month
linger.
reading.
It's
It's a weekend and you're kind of absorbed and
Literally,
you really
my first
devour it.
ARC reader texted me. I gave her the book midday Saturday, and she just texted and said, I finished. She's an MFA student, so
Good.
bright future for her, reading everything really fast.
A bright reader. Yeah, so I think it really cooks along, and the concept and the title are going to help it.
I think the other part about
Read it, boys.
I really liked how tight the story was. So it was
Thank
it
you.
was so confined that it was
I
fun.
loved how
it's a
confined
fun
it was.
palette, meaning that you only have a limited number of colors to draw with.
Right.
It meant that you were able to play with the very particular character dynamics without having to worry about an
And
entire
honestly, I did
universe.
that out of my own limitations. At first, I was like, okay, if I
Don't admit that.
this
No,
well,
strike
creativity
that from the
comes.
record.
Creativity
I did that because it
comes
was a
from-
conscious stylistic choice that I thought best served the whole situation.
Cannot be
Which included
so
my own abilities.
proud to say that it came about because I had this image. I was writing down novel ideas because I was in a novel class with you before the MFA program was even born.
Yep.
And I was like, I could do this. I like World War II. I was just writing down everything I like. And I got this image of a girl with a baby in a snowy wood. And I was like, okay, I know instinctively, because you feel like you're discovering the story, not making it up. And I felt
Sure.
like, I was like, she's the reluctant babysitter, but I don't know why. She's just selfish and she had to run away from the house because bad guys were coming in. That's so boring. That sounds like Taken or some other 90-minute thriller. And I don't want that.
Sounds nothing like Taken, but go ahead.
Not Taken, but like Hostage. That's the one I mean. Just where you're like, it's just like a 90-minute action flick. Anyway, so I was pursuing this and I was like, she has to somehow be on the run because babies are, for some reason, outlawed. And then I was like, well, what if there's extreme population control because resources are limited? And basically, I found myself inventing a ship with a worldwide flood because I could not imagine writing population control and the reasons for it nationwide. I don't know our politics well enough. I don't know how Congress works in a situation like that. Like, there's just, your dad could write a satire
boat
about
works
that.
really, really well.
But I was like, make it a boat, and then people, if they ask, would they really do this? And I go, yes, because I made up the boat. Like, I just declared that this is, you have to know human psychology
you also read
enough.
way too much about North Korea.
I was gonna
Free
ask.
books, that's not way too much.
Yes, it is.
No, I was afraid of
I'm
defaulting.
way too much, meaning for normal human consumption. You're research.
far too much,
you're
but it's
researching-
actually
you're-
very
yeah,
enlightening.
I was
You're
actually-
researching a book, but
This is one of those funny things about working with Gwen is you realize that she does an insane amount of research for a fictional story. And every time we would discuss a point, she'd say, well, actually they did it this way in North Korea and this way in Stalin Russia and in this way in the Third Reich. And I was like, whoa, Gwen clearly knows
It's
about
actually
this subject.
one of the funnest parts. I have to make myself stop knowing everything.
I also
and build the story.
I also had to say occasionally, like, well, Gwen, assuming I didn't care about any of those spots, what is the best
Right.
solution?
I have
for
to
this
fight being
story,
like,
right?
here's all the research, and readers are probably like, we don't care. But
Oh,
I'm like,
and
I'm
again,
super
I think,
excited about it.
Writing classes often say that research all gets pulled out, and so I think you won't feel the research forward aspect of it.
Hopefully
but
not.
It creates no, you won't. I already know you won't.
Okay.
But the whole world behind it becomes all of one piece because.
And
well,
that's the
Gwen's done
goal.
it.
Honestly, it's not just how much fun did I have reading about Hitler's inner circle so that I could build one. It's just hopefully the fruit is there and people taste that and they can go read about that Hitler's inner circle if they want.
Hopefully the fruit of Hitler's inner circle is there and people can taste it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly what I meant.
So what's the release day?
October 24th.
Yeah, it's coming right up. October 24th.
And you can get it with free shipping if you order before that date.
And you can read it by a
Correct.
fire this fall.
Cannonballbooks.com.
Under a blanket, comfortably,
Turn on
by a
happy
window,
music.
looking outside at horrible weather, comfortable in our not too dystopian dystopia, reading a much starker rendition of the human condition.
Yeah, for those of you who have your own babies, this one here, there's some very cold parts in this book that will make you enjoy not being outside. So that's
Very, very true. The first
Which is
ARC
good.
reader
You want to feel it pretty heavily.
You do, and I've actually heard people say, because this was, can I say this on the podcast, Brian, that this is
Nate never asked that question. So
later,
Ready?
somewhat later than we had planned to launch it. It was like there was this
Oh.
moving target, just some mildly later.
Just a
but,
year
or so.
like,
let's just
Two.
assume at one point it was supposed to have been released, say, in January. I'm actually
yeah.
very glad that it's not releasing in January, because you wouldn't believe the number of people who've told me, perfect time to release it. I just wanted to curl up in a blanket. You can tell these are women writing to me. And they're like, I wanted a wintry book.
One
Like,
hopes.
this is...
Just
no
love
boys
to
have told me,
curl up in a
just ready to
blanket.
curl up with a candle.
Make some
and a
tea
book.
and yeah.
So I'm actually very grateful that we're releasing it right when people are thinking, actually, Christmas, because we're always
Yeah.
like, only 14 Fridays till Christmas. At least they are in my house. That's how we are.
Nah, you guys are crazy.
Buy it
Again,
now.
I
Buy
I
one.
repeat, who counts Fridays till Christmas in October?
The funny memes that go through my family text thread, that's who. Usually accompanied
This
by a picture
podcast
from
has
Elf.
officially reached what it's actually about.
I have
Yeah, Christmas.
succeeded.
Yeah,
It's
perfect.
about Christmas.
So you're one of those people counting down to Christmas.
It's all about Christmas.
Do you listen to Christmas music while reading this book?
Not while reading, but while writing.
Did you really?
For certain scenes, not during the whole thing. No. Sorry. There are multiple scenes where I'd be like, this one is like this song on repeat while I'm building that mood. So like, there's a fantastic
Rudolph.
Russian choral song that Patrick Doyle wrote for the new Jack Ryan movie. It's called "Faith of Our Fathers." Just if anybody's interested in reading something that sounds like Hunt for Red October, it's like this. So I would listen to that during parts, and then towards, I don't want to
Let's just real
too
quick
much
as
away,
we run by, just talk about how horrible Jack Ryan is, and just it's horrible. Now move on.
it was actually
But
horrible.
the score,
first
the song's good.
I loved Kenneth Branagh as the bad guy in his snowy Russian accent. I will watch it for that, but I won't watch it.
You had
for
to get quite a
anything
ways
else.
through a lot of schlock to get there.
That's okay. I'm fine
No,
with that.
it's
I'm
not.
nicer than you.
It's not. Okay.
My friends think I'm picky enough about my movies.
So this one you could. I'm trying to think. What would you listen to? What would one listen to while
Equilibrium.
reading this? Okay.
Klaus Badelt, who studied under Hans Zimmer, so he's not as talented, but he's got that feel.
Whoa, you heard it here. He's not as talented as Hans Zimmer.
The first Pirates of the Caribbean was amazing, but then Hans Zimmer took over for the other ones. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, it's not the most impressive score, but it does feel like the book. I think the feel of Equilibrium, the slow awakening of conscience in that sterile world.
So you need a really
sterile,
good candle to turn on that score and read this
it
book.
depends on how much you want to immerse yourself in the mood. If you're like fighting a bad mood while writing it because it's just too oppressive,
Then read it in a bubble bath.
Then read it in a bubble bath, or do what I did when I was reading 1984 for the first time 18 years ago, which was turn on Handel's Messiah. Like, I had to have something that was extreme opposite of the dystopian.
Well, this is fast enough. I don't think you need to do anything quite as drastic as Handel's Messiah.
I hope not. The first reader said, when her family asked, how is the book? She goes, fun, dark. And then they're like, how can it be both? And I'm like, I'm glad that it's not just
Like,
dark.
It was nighttime.
Hopefully it was fun and dark.
And they're not
How
allowed
are
like
you?
fun.
Yeah. What are you working on now?
I am working on a basically my first fantasy novel after realizing that I actually kind of liked fantasy. I didn't like the whole idea of fantasy because I feel like every girl is writing fantasy.
You just didn't want to write a bunch more elves.
I did not.
Yeah.
And then
she did. She didn't. Until
I
she
watched.
did.
I was still not about
Christmas
elves.
is coming.
Then she
and
watched.
Christmas
She
is
watched
all
Rings
about
of Power. She watched Rings of Power and was like, "You know what the world needs more of? These kinds of elves."
I actually watched Dune, and I know that is classically sci-fi, but I think like when I saw how serious fantasy, because it is fantasy still, it's like fantasy sci-fi. When I saw how serious they could treat it. The fantasy future. Real life is fantasy. The future can be fantasy too, right?
I was going to say, callback. Is it dystopian? Is Dune dystopian?
No, I don't think so.
Yes, it is. Okay, go ahead. Let's keep talking.
Anyway, after watching Dune and saw that you didn't have to treat every fantasy story like Peter Jackson treated Lord of the Rings, where it's just nobody takes it seriously. The CGI looks like your typical fantasy.
Hold on.
All
Everybody takes it seriously. We've learned that. Everybody takes Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings seriously.
They love it so much.
Okay, the other guys in my office just over there take it so seriously, and I'm the lone one saying.
Okay.
Anyway, we're getting really derailed, but I'm working on my first fantasy book. It's a retelling of the Orpheus story because years ago I watched Moulin Rouge and got furious at how they followed the original story arc of Orpheus, where he doesn't get out, he loses the bride. It's all terribly sad. And especially since all the Christians were like, it's a Christian movie, because look, his name's Christian, and he's out to save the bride. And I'm like, finish the story that's not that's not the Christ story at all, because he doesn't actually win the bride. He stays in hell. So ever since then, I was like, one day I'm going to rewrite the Orpheus myth, where it's pretty blatantly a guy going into an underworld to save a family member, and this time he makes it out, which is also the silver chair, by the way.
You just gave it away.
Everybody should know that the Orpheus story, retold by the happy
Gwen is
medievals.
now writing just one big spoiler.
Yeah, I love. Well, if people know the Orpheus story at all, or if they've even read the Silver Chair, which is it's like inspired by the medieval version of Orpheus. Because C.S. Lewis loved that. Like if they even know that, I think that's a great pitch for the book, because they're like, oh, I like Silver Chair. I would, read that set in a totally different setting, like a medieval, like an Elizabethan Finland / Hawaii.
Was there ever an Elizabethan Finland? Because there
is now.
There ought to have been. I don't know. The / Hawaii is a little
that
extra.
Right there, I couldn't get. I was getting banana leaf backpacker.
Well, okay, Brian, I admit I haven't yet pitched this to you, so you might have a few things to say about my world.
This is a warm up. This is a warm up.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm
nice.
about 2/3 through that.
I would say, if you can give me your top 3 lessons from having now written your debut novel.
Because we should also get, how long ago did you first write the draft for this one?
I'm going to take a sip of water real quick.
I'm trying to remember when I first saw it. It's been
I can give you the full timeline. Late October 2017. So we're coming, I bet the release day is, knowing God's sense of humor, it's probably to the day 6 years since that first image popped into my mind.
Knowing his sense of humor, it's probably off by 1 or 2 days.
Probably, and if I knew, I'd be frustrated. Oh, it's almost perfect.
He's like, this one's for Gwen Zapan.
Yeah.
Right here. Just barely missed.
So I began it in a novel class in October of 2017.
Yeah.
Took a year to write it. Sent it to Nate because he promised to read it. Mm-hmm. And then it took long enough for him to read it that he's like, you should join the MFA program so that I'm forced to read it, because you didn't honestly have time outside of homework.
True story.
True story. So then I was like, I will join the MFA program and get you to read this book. So then once you read it, then it was like, send it to Brian. I sent it to Brian with a terrifying cover letter because I'd never written one before. And Brian was like, hard pass. And Nate was like, just ignore the cover letter and read the book itself. Because I was told my cover letter was like dark and bossy or something. And I'm like,
the cover letter
me?
Was... I only remember the impression of the cover letter. I don't remember any specifics.
Please don't remember anything about it at all.
I
tried so hard.
This is a really good lesson for people trying to pitch.
Actually, cover letters are totally different than writing the novel itself.
I think actually what the heart of your book is this girl finding a baby and then trying to find a place to hide a baby on a prison ship, which is really fun. Like, that's a fun pressure cooker idea.
Yeah.
What you really like about it when you went, and I remember this now, I think you over pitched concentration camps, North Korea, Stalin.
All my research, Brian.
Right,
Fall in
right.
love.
It was bad.
And then that was so strong. That flavor was so strong that I was like, wow, baby in North Korea sounds
Imagine being in Auschwitz if
Right.
it was in North Korea.
You're like, nobody needs this story.
And imagine you had a baby to take care of in there. I just was like, whoa, that sounds pretty dark. And
Father of 4 at the time or whatever. Like, no.
I was like, I don't think that's a children's book. But then when it's reframed around, hey, what's the main character doing? How is she trying to get out of the ship? And, who are her friends? She's got a great relationship with Uncle Barney, another, a Secret Service member on this boat. And those kinds of things are all pretty fascinating. And that there, and then also the world of being stuck on a ship with all the rules and the Godmother, that all comes together. The cat and mouse chase, that all works nicely. But yes, I think you overpitched your pet, which is what all authors do. The pet interest.
This is what I love about this.
Right.
No, she pitched Hell on Earth.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I've got an idea for a novel. How about Hell on Earth?
I am a very optimistic person, and so I find it ironic that I'm always writing something that scares me when I read it then later in the cold light of day.
Because I'm
like,
how
wait,
it should be.
I'm not that dark. I'm post-mill. Like, why am I freaking everybody out with my content? I didn't mean to do that. That's way violent.
Side note, it's not that freaky. The story is a pressure cooker. Yeah. So I think that from that first pitch, not only did the cover letter need to be thrown away, but the book's changed quite a bit since then as well. The book has developed through multiple drafts. How many drafts did you end up doing on this book?
Oh, it depends on what you call it. Like, I feel like light edits for sure, a lot. But I would say that first one, I would say probably 3 that I was going through, and significantly, like, I think big picture stuff, like build the character, build the world.
A to Z rebuilds. That's 3 rewrites, right?
So, okay, just so you know,
really
a rewrite is not what I would call a draft. So,
okay.
So that would be like 3 rewrites. Those are obviously drafts. But if you're going back through and adding a character, and threading somebody through, and it's still it's kind of like light work, but you're adding a thread and you're weaving it through.
Right.
That's a draft.
Okay.
Like there'd be like this character's draft.
Right.
Then there's some whenever you're rearranging beats, it can be really light. But it's still like
it's still a rewrite.
It's
then
still
I would say
versioning. So you still end up with versions. I sometimes on the screenplay I call them half drafts or whatever.
Yeah.
But
so I think half drafts, because you saved me from a wasted year by saying, cut your story in half, stay on the boat. This is what happened. So I knew I could.
You're welcome.
Thank
everyone.
you so much.
Yeah.
It's probably why I should pitch my Orpheus story to you sooner. But anyway, so I would say probably 4 rewrites. But because you gave me the parameters,
Gwen, I think you did more than that. I think you're selling yourself short. Like I've seen.
I'm thinking 7.
It's
7
at
or 8.
It's at
you
least
guys
that.
for me, I'm not afraid of work. And
No.
so
Okay,
I'm just
if
like,
you think
yay,
back
I get to dive back into my
think
novel.
back to 2017.
Yeah.
From 2017 till now.
Right.
You definitely are not afraid of work, and you have done the work.
No, it's crazy. Gwen is also one of those people that you can pitch a big idea or a small idea, and once she's convinced, it'll go into the draft and go all the way through. And I think if I went and checked my email, I'd be more tempted to say I've gotten 10 drafts.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that's more. I don't know if it's that many. I can go
double
check,
digits, people.
I'm just thinking more in terms of like, what did I have to do? I remember Nate saying from the first draft, Piper needed to have more of a save the cat moment at the beginning, and like a little bit more of should see her wobbling so that when she finds the baby,
we need to like
it's
her,
not like this light, dark to light switch. Only Saul of Tarsus gets that knocked off his donkey, and it's like all of a sudden God moment, he's changed, right? But we couldn't do that in this book. So I remember making her more likable, making a pass where I was like making it lighter, taking away some violence, because leaning
scraping
what moms don't want their kids to read.
Yep.
Yeah, black fingernails and all that.
I think that the thing that's important here too, everybody who actually wants to be a writer who's listening, I know a lot of people who are listening are consumers and they're interested in the final product.
Mm-hmm.
But getting something all the way to the point where it feels easy, where it feels quick, is not easy at all, and it is not quick. So this is 6 years in the making, from that first day till now.
With lots of pauses, I should say.
And that's just so you know, that's fast. In the industry,
really,
that's quick.
See, I hang around you too much, where you're like, you wrote a novel and read another novel, so I'm like, I'm so
when people
slow.
start working on a novel, they begin working on a novel to publication 6 years later is like, okay, that's not even that big a deal. Now, some people write their novel and they sell it on a pitch or whatever. They write the first draft, go through 3 drafts. It's published within 2 years. But that's kind of as fast as it gets, unless you're just self-publishing. So 2 years is kind of like lightning, in the publishing world. Getting it right and iterating the drafts and trying to find the right arrangement such that the flavors work, the pace works, the tone works, the world works, the payoff works, and you don't have bitter aftertaste. Like trying to get it all aligned takes a minute. It takes
a lot better now.
Yeah, it takes a long minute to do. Yeah. And it's really, time doesn't matter, but getting it right does matter. So we don't get to, and I'll just say as an author, and on behalf of Gwen and everybody else, we don't get to reiterate once it's published. It's like, this is what grandkids will see. Like, this is generations later. This is the book that comes off the shelf.
This is the book.
Yep. And however many drafts got emailed to Brian in the interim are just gone. And this is the book. This is the book. And maybe, you can edit corrections between printing, because there's always
I found one pretty significant blooper.
There's always a typo. There's always a mistake, no matter what. And I
just found a few in Harry Potter as I was reading out loud. And so you're in good company.
No, it's there. There is no perfection, right? There's no perfection. You chase it and you try to get it developed and baked, and then you're going to have to serve it. But the amount of work you do on the recipe and everything in between matters a ton, because it's actually the cheap work. So it's more expensive to have a book you're not proud of, like for years and years and years of your life, rather than, actually taking the time to grind. And you have put the time in. And I'll add subpoint. You've always had the ability to break bones and throw away things that you were in love with. It doesn't come easy. So every time, I'll just say, if you approach Gwen with an edit for her book, that is something that she loves, and everything in your book is something you love.
Oh yeah,
because it has to be, right? Like, as you're putting it in there, it always presents, that conversation always begins like the Alamo.
Oh yeah,
like, this is
Davy Crockett going down swinging.
This is where she's gonna die, and then the next day it's totally different. She's like, okay, she sat with the idea, she worked it through. Yeah, and if it is in fact
mouthed off enough.
Yeah, and if it is in fact better, it's immediately worked on and incorporated. And that's probably some of the hardest work of being an author, is putting 6 months into something or 3 months into something that nobody saw, showing it to them, and them saying, hey, I've got an idea. How about you throw those 3 months away and do something else?
And it really is like, you have to keep the big picture in mind. Like, is this about you and what you loved doing, or is this about making a book that other people will love? And it takes about 2 seconds to realize, wait, if the other person telling me this edit is right, I really do want to do it. And I typically was just like, prove it to me. I might want to believe you, but I need to be shown that that's better.
Yep.
And if I'm even 1% in the dark on, not really convinced that it's better,
the worst
I need to be convinced.
The worst thing, I was recently talking to a buddy who is deep into an investment on a project, and everything's just, well, you reach certain points when things are going to publishers, when things are just like, they're done. That's it. They're done. And in talking to him, he was excited and was like, thoughts, whatever. And I didn't realize, okay, so the concrete's kind of set. There's a certain measure of like point of no return. And if you throw out some ideas that would have fundamentally like just jolted something
people hate
up
that.
a notch, and like the frustration,
you can see in their face.
Yeah,
it's too late.
And the thing that the good news is, it's good. It's good and it's coming, but there are always things that we just have to let go of and be like, but I could have done this or that or the other thing. And you get one debut novel. This is your debut novel.
You do. And the thing
You've
is,
worked for a long time to get here.
I have other books to write. Like, come on, this is not.
And they won't all take 6 years.
Hopefully not. And just an encouraging note on that, it was not 6 years of nose to the grindstone on this one. There were frequent breaks where it was waiting for you, but then I joined the program and then it was still waiting. Then it was like, great, it's good enough to send to Brian. And then it was waiting for him to read it.
Getting into the program. There's all that stuff.
Even a year ago, when I thought we were going to be publishing fairly soon, it's like you read it for the final time and had just like changed this. And I was like, love it. Like, I'm so glad I made those changes. It makes everything better. Trying to edit like the week before my wedding, that kind of deal. But it wasn't like constant work. And even now, let's say that you had this brilliant idea and we were somehow able to like pause. We're not going to do that.
Brian's shaking his head.
But in terms of the work, I would not think it a failure. I had to go back. I'd be like, absolutely, I love this story. Like,
it needs
I'll
one
go
more
back.
chocolate chip.
Yeah, let's go put it in.
Ryan, have the books been ordered?
They have.
Yeah, so even now, Gwen, it's done.
I have to realize it's done.
So basically, now we know that the books have been ordered. They're being printed. And now I say, so here's what I really think, Gwen.
No, don't. I already found, fortunately, when I was reading the audiobook, that we found not just a typo. I can handle a typo. We found a blooper, like an actual mistake.
Gwen,
and it was like the day before the
things.
final. Oh, I know, because it's part of the revision process. It's
I'm
not
curious.
always.
People don't always notice this stuff, and I mean, I don't mind. I've got all the skeletons from typos in my closet.
I was just really fond of the skeleton because I was reading it out loud, and I was like, he had no firearm on his belt.
Gwen's
there was a
giving it
firearm,
away. She
and I'm
can't
like,
stop herself.
What?
She
I
can't
love
stop.
it. I love it because it's a blooper. It was just so embarrassing that I want other people to feel, I don't know, encouraged that there may be bloopers in their book.
I would like to say that we've gone on the record on SASF. There is a blooper in this book.
No, we fixed it. That's why I'm telling you.
There's a blooper.
I was like,
did we fix it?
We did.
No, there's a blooper.
She's fixed
Oh,
it.
I'm sure there is, but
Exactly.
not that one. Not that one. There are some more bloopers, but it would take a keen eye to realize this one, and I'm not going to give it away. I'm going to see if a reader can find it. But because the handgun one was taken away, nobody's going to find that one.
I think part of editing Forbidden Child that was fun is walking a number of different tightropes. So I don't know how to describe that. It's more like spiders, I guess, because you don't.
Tetris.
Tetris, because you want to walk.
Or Twister on tightropes, even better.
Oh wow, yeah, because you want to walk that line between you wanted this to be a kid's story, not YA. We didn't want to go Margaret Atwood, Oryx and Crake on it. Similarly, you wanted to be able to talk about being in a dystopian society without having to tell boy with the striped pajamas level of child perspective.
Yeah.
Then you also wanted to have a fun world with also something that was focused very much on the people and that relationship between the main characters. So I thought it was really enjoyable to watch you try to shave and adjust and fit all those things into a parameter of a book that, you know, we're proud to be coming out a few weeks from now.
It's fantastic. It's here. The day is here. And when's your real baby due?
December 31st. So I'm 6 months.
6 months. Perfect.
And I was like, okay, so you mentioned
it's all lined up
very early on that this was Piper, the main character, was like an outworking of my own demons. And like, I did not set out to do that, but I think it was inevitable. The things I was working through in my life, you know, I did write a girl that I was like, guess what? I relate to her. I didn't write somebody I don't relate to. I wrote a bad guy that I relate to, which is even scarier. So like working through somebody who is very rules-based, who needs to be okay with having her illusions shattered about the people that she thought she loved, like all sorts of stuff, would turned out to be scarily autobiographical. And the thing is, I would start writing about it, and then you would give me an edit and I would make that edit. And then that would come true in real life. And then I'd be like, oh, now I know how to write it better because I've gotten past that thing that I'm trying to get Piper through. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like, it's like I was doing a bad job making her well-rounded in a certain areas because I hadn't gone through that particular revolution myself yet. And so towards the end, one of your last suggestions was to throw in just something at the end.
It's like add a baby to the story.
No, the baby was always there. But you did say add something to the end, and it was like, I should have known. I'm about to get married. Of course, there'd be that little, a little bit of a hint of there might be, I don't know, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a little hint of that. And then there's a baby boy in the story. Of course, I'm having a baby boy. He was, born around Christmas, and I'm like, please let my baby be born before Christmas. I don't want a January baby. With a New Year's Eve due date, you're like, it could be. Next
I will
year.
say,
lots of jumping jacks.
With this book, and especially the last couple chapters.
I've been told not to do those. Still doing burpees, not jumping jacks.
Spicy food and all that. Yeah, I guess Baby on Board would be a good title for that. But this one, you really do want to make sure you finish it before Christmas, because that is going to be very satisfying for those who read this book. You want to get this. Make sure
if you get it anywhere near the release date,
You'll be done.
You'll be good.
You'll be done really quickly.
And you will want to turn on the Christmas music.
If you're giving it to somebody for Christmas, then they'll be done by New Year's for sure.
And that'll be great.
Yes.
And I should say also, I think, doesn't this take place over like
4 days?
4 days. So this is fast.
It's
this
a quick
fun.
read.
It is exciting.
It goes. And a lot of, that's Hunger Games and other things that move.
It's basically when you're telling a story that you're almost not missing any minutes. Like minute by minute, there is stress and where I'm going to hide the baby and whatever.
Right.
There's not like, and over the course of the week, she did this. It's like, no, it's
Camera
we're skipping maybe an hour at a time.
The tempo is very real.
She frequently even stays up all night. But she's like, a lot of sleepless nights for poor Piper. So it's like, we're there with her. She doesn't even, we don't even clock out for her to go to sleep. It's like, nope. We're stuck in bed with her. She's having insomnia.
Dealing with this.
With panic.
Yeah.
You had to get those extra hours in there. You only had the limited time frame. Use them all.
Forbidden Child, everybody.
There it is. I'll hold up one more time.
October 24th.
This is an ARC, I should say. You'll get a nice hardback version with the jacket,
dust jacket.
and no bloopers.
Written by Gwen Newell. And it's nice also that you got married and debuted your novel under your married name. So you're not going to deal with...
so thankful.
You're not going to actually deal with what many people do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for years as I worked on this story, I was like, I want to get married really soon because I'm sure this book will come out really soon. And I was getting panicky with the guy's not showing up. It's like, God didn't make the guy show up any sooner. He just delayed
podcast just got real.
He just delayed the publication date until the guy had shown up much later than I thought he would.
As the agent of that delay.
You were just waiting for Ben to
Brian
show up.
Cole timed it perfectly.
No,
He's like, this needs to happen. We're going to try to sync this up with the birth of your first child. We want to publish under your married name.
You know who's proudest of my married name being on a book is my father-in-law, because it's his name, and he really feels like he's had something to do with this.
Well, he has, obviously.
And he
I was
has.
going to say your husband, and then I...
No, I mean, he is proud, but like, that father-in-law pride, just like all
Newell
the
is out
Facebook
there.
reshares.
He feels
my name.
He feels that you've contributed to the Newell family now.
Well done. You've contributed to the Newell family lore.
Yeah. He's like, Newells are now writers.
That's awesome.
what it is.
That's good.
So yeah, October 24th, get it, give it, enjoy it.
Cannonballbooks.com is probably the easiest place to find it, but anywhere books are books, you can find it.
Anywhere where books are books.
And if you are local, come to the book release party October 24th. You can find the information on my Instagram page.
Oh, yeah. You should follow Gwen Newell Author on Instagram.
Yep.
There you go. We've done it.
Hurrah.
Cheers.
Peace out.
Hope you enjoyed the episode of SASF. We enjoy having you all share your feedbacks and thoughts with us. Here I have for you the proofs of a new book. You might wonder why I don't have the book itself. Well, it hasn't arrived yet. I wanted to show you some of my favorite parts of Blah Blah Black Sheep. If you're in audio, of course, you're going to have to either go to blahblahkids.com to check it out yourself or watch the video on Canon Plus. But here you can see the friendly grasshopper. Not a super important character, but he's on the title page anyway. And then the other page, here's the picture of Blah Blah Black Sheep singing the wrong song, Blah. It's great stuff. And then the last two I wanted to show you, this great scene inspired by Tintin and Hergé. Blah Blah's wondering if he should become a pirate, sail the seas. Last picture I wanted to show you, because you can't see all of them, you'll have to wait for the book. You don't get to see him running with the wolves or him with the Yetis. He saves the baby Yeti. But you do get to see Blah Blah wondering if he should join a circus to become a fire breather, or perhaps join a rodeo to bust broncs. Anyways, this book is great. Please go to blahblahkids.com and check out the pre-order specials. Some special bonuses there, along with getting your book signed by Nate and Forrest, and also being a part of making the show happen, Lord willing, and many other cool things. So head to blahblahkids.com, get a copy for under your tree.